the next one, or I do the next one?
Since we argued about it so much, you should do it.
Okay. If you look at this wall, there's a bunch of windows, but there's also some kind of blackish panels, and those are solar thermal. This is a really modest amount of solar thermal that we decided that we would use. We're not using the solar thermal for space heating. As Michael said at the very beginning, that's something that everybody just jumps on board for. We just decided we would use a little bit for hot water heating, for the domestic hot water. But what we wanted to challenge ourselves with was integrating these panels into the wall so that they become part of the face of the wall and not just something that's plunked onto the building. So that was one of our biggest deals as far as the solar domestic is concerned.
So you can be the judge of whether we were successful if you sort of say, oh my gosh, you know, that'd be a clue for us for the future projects. Obviously, if we're going to have a lot of gain, a lot of windows with a lot of gain, that quickly heats up a space, especially with these wonderful glow iron glazings and such. So you've got to hang on to that some of that. And having a reasonable amount of mass in a house does assist its performance quite dramatically. So we have a lot of ways that we have typically done that kind of thing. Obviously 30 years ago we would have drum walls and we'd have all kinds of ridiculous things. And so we've tried to get a bit more sophisticated. Even up to 25 years ago we would still do big rock beds underneath the slabs. We'd have the air being brought through there and radiating up through the floor. But in recent times we've tried to get a little bit simpler and a little bit more elegant, I hope. One thing that we wanted to do this time, and will happen soon, is that drywall is going to start being available soon. Not quite. We thought we could grab it. Kim emailed, hassled the life out of BASF to try to get some, but we weren't able to. And it has wax inside it. It has a powder of wax. So obviously when the wax melts with a little bit of solar gain, it absorbs a lot of heat when it goes back into being a solid state, and it doesn't just drip off the walls or anything. It's just encapsulated in there, that it releases a great deal of heat. So that's future. We weren't able to do that here. The clients wanted to have, Dave and Debbie wanted to have a concrete floor, so that helped somewhat. What we always do under our lower slab floors, we also put a lot of gravel. So that gravel is above the foam. There's 8 inches of foam underneath the lower level gravel. So that's all within the system of the house, the envelope of the house. We also have 5/8 drywall, thicker drywall, things like that. So we think we've matched mass reasonably well with all this gain that we're so proud of getting.
HRV. So I'm going to kind of read Michael's notes because he's thought about this quite a bit. He's been thinking about it since 1979, and I wasn't born yet then. But he says that he recognizes, and we recognize how crude HRVs are, and I think Darcy will agree. And our tar sands had helped us with this project. We had discussed many ways of using CO2 sensors as part of the operating system for the HRV to control it a little bit more rather than it just coming on and going off. But instead, after many more discussions, and you can imagine that we've had many discussions every day of this project for the past 12 months about every little detail, and this is one of them that went back and forth quite a few times. In the end, what we've ended up doing is putting booster fans from the kitchen and the washrooms so that we can be more effective in the exhaust of warm air and using the HRV system. Anything else to add there?
Well, the only thing we might add is that not knowing our audience that well, HRV is a heat recovery ventilation system, so we're trying to exchange air and get fresh air into the house without opening up windows and bringing all the cold. So just letting warm inside air rub shoulders with cold warm exhausted air. Another thing that we want to do that we've done in a number of houses before are cool rooms, sort of like the old kind of root cellars that we know, but within the envelope of the house, and truly actually having inside air being brought in. In large areas, they're very easy to do. There's a lot of bottles of wine usually, for one thing, to provide mass, and other things there. In this case, we had just a very small area, a small pantry that you'll see upstairs that we want to utilize this approach with. So we insulate it well, put an insulated exterior door on it, and we also ran about 60 feet of pipe, 4-inch pipe, before we backfilled the house. So when it's cold, like now, and when it's -40 out, we can bring that air in, temper it to cool it. In summertime, it will be cooled, that kind of thing. So all we need to do is just keep it a little bit cooler 20 degrees cooler, for example, than the house, 20 Fahrenheit degrees cooler than the house. Because most of the things we keep in the fridge don't need to be in the fridge, they don't need to be that cool, but the things we keep in the pantry don't want to be that warm. They want to be in a cool pantry. So check it out, and I think it's a great idea, and it will work well.
Not quite done yet.
That could
There's
be
a few things that are not quite done yet, but that's one of them. Okay, and grey water heat recovery. In the early 80s, Michael applied for and used a grant for doing...
From CMHC, thank you.
Been doing this a long time for design of heat recovery systems for warm drain water. And he did it at the Old College for the dorm, and also for a fitness club and a Y summer camp, and a couple of houses. But you know, we can buy this product off the shelf. It's really easy to install. It's something everybody can do in your own home now. You don't need a house like this, and a pretty effective way of just gaining a little bit of heat recovery from your drain water before it gets into your hot water tank. It's a smart thing to do. Okay.
Another thing that's very obvious that we're standing on top of right now is we have a water cistern underneath here. And you can see beside me here where we have downspouts coming in the back of the house, the point here and by the front door over there. Water is being directed down, goes through a pretty nice filtration system here before coming into the water cistern under us. It's not a very large one, it's around 1,400 gallons, around 6,000 liters, which is smallish for cisterns, but it's a great opportunity to recover water. Matter of fact, I have a lot of interest in developing country situations, and there's a couple of folks that have been doing this for a few decades there, and reading their work with it, they say essentially, I mean, here in the city, we have to go to such incredible extremes to protect the common water resource that could be backsiphoned. But they say if you can keep the cows from falling in it and the birds out of it, that it's guaranteed to be potable, not to meet our requirements, but in terms of human health. So we really have gone to great extremes to provide that. Obviously, in this case, it's not being used for potable purposes, but only for the simple things like laundry, toilets, and exterior ground uses, recreational uses outside.
You do the next one.
Well, you know, my main love affair in life is actually toilets, which might sound funny, but that's my main thing in life. I mean, we're all driven at different times of the day to have that love affair, but mine's been a very compelling one. And so for a little while, actually, since 1977, that's been my major preoccupation is composting sanitation. So we do the national parks across the country as well as homeowners and lots of public facilities around the world. So obviously water is a great issue, a great concern and interest of mine. We did not incorporate such here. It took Dave years and years, and myself a little bit of conversation with the city to be able to get them sort of on board, emphasis on the sort of part of it. And so there's an opportunity for people in this development to use such. It was decided not to use them here, but we still wanted to give some concern, some interest beyond just collecting rainwater. And there's all kinds of incredibly simple things that we overlook every day. You know, almost, you go into a washroom or you go into the kitchen, whatever, almost all faucets are single handle. And what do? You shove them back. You only want any kind of water for washing your hands or something, but you're guaranteed to get half hot water. You don't need it. And there's some nice off-the-shelf stuff too, that when you want hot water, you can turn it on for hot water, the faucet or a single liter, whatever, and it will return that water back to the hot water tank until it's up to temperature. So you recover the heat and the water from those kind of things. So we're implementing simple things like that here, which have a great impact. And Kim, you want to do
the last again, when we began this process, and we did a very 3-day or a weekend-long charade, we talked a lot about the ways that a house could, like this could be accomplished. But one of the things that was really apparent and kept coming up in conversations is how you modify the occupants. Because it doesn't matter how much of all these funky things we add to the house, it really comes down to lifestyle and how people live and how they conserve. So a house may or may not be net zero, really depending on its occupants. And I think Michael and I may end up having to do some training as part of our service.
So that encapsulates a few of the things that we thought were important. And because we have some various government people here, then I will totally inappropriately wander into some turf that I'm going to regret. And that is having been involved and interested and committed deeply so in all these areas, these energy considerations and being more respectful with this world that we're a part of, it is troublesome. And I just was reading just a couple of days ago a report that the International Institute of Sustainable Development in Winnipeg put out, and they were just curiously looking at what kind of subsidies do we provide for oil exploration, just exploration, not the huge amounts of money we put into infrastructure development, that kind of thing at all. And so they looked at 2 years ago, 2008, the feds put in around $1 to $3 billion just to Alberta, Saskatchewan, Newfoundland, Labrador for direct subsidies in terms of tax write-off opportunities, things like this. Alberta gave a little bit, they gave about $1 billion. Saskatchewan gave a paltry $100 million. And so that's a kind of troubling thing, because so often we see when we're talking with people that people will say, oh my gosh, well we can't subsidize that solar stuff or efficiency, those kind of things. And so from my perspective, to put it real crudely, real bluntly, with governments, meaning with our local municipalities, with our provincial, with federal, my response would be that somewhere along the line, we've just got to get them to help us move in this direction or get out of the way, because we've got to move in these directions. It's compelling for us. And to have a massive kinds of encouragement for those things that are so destructive when we have so many other social, environmental, economic benefits with these options is disconcerting, to say the least.
We really appreciate Michael and Kim's commitment and their personal interest in this work. Before we do the last part of the ceremony, which is the tree planting, I just have a short commercial to do. We're going to have tours after the tree planting ceremony. We'll probably break up into smaller groups. There's 3 or 4 of us that can do the tours. But I want to thank some of the special people that helped contribute to the house, and without whose help we couldn't have made this project work. Wall-Tight Eco, Duxton Windows, Wash Appliances, Skyfire Energy, Ron Dials, Granite and Marble, Sensa Lighting, Evolve Concrete Designs, Candela Group, Beyond Foam Insulation, Benjamin Moore, IKEA and Smart